ever feel like you're supposed to have it all together, but inside you're wondering how everyone else makes it look so easy? You're not alone. This is Southern Sisters, a place for women who want to grow without the guilt, find purpose in the messy middle, and be reminded that you were made for more. Make sure you stick around. We always save the bloopers for the end. Welcome to our episode of Southern Sisters. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your day with me. Guys, this looks a little different. I've done this only one other time before, and it is still just as nerve-wracking to not be surrounded by the safety net that is my sisters. So if I seem a little nervous, that's why. I really don't like the idea of doing this by myself, but I have important things to say, and scheduling was such with the sisters that it was impossible for us to get together for the month of September. We recorded the last Saturday in August, and then we've all been so busy with school starting and work commitments and personal travel. Like our family in particular, like we have Jared's birthday, we have my birthday, we have my parents' anniversary, we have Lindsay's birthday, we have Adam's birthday. We had Evie and Josh's son's Brody's birthday, like so much going on in the month of September. So that's why we're here. Our icebreaker question for today is, and I know there have been some people that have been patiently awaiting this question. Meggan, what is your actual and most embarrassing moment? Because you really didn't share one back in episode 9 when everyone else did. Yeah, I didn't. But you know, everybody's has one, but they don't really want to share one. Yeah, I didn't. Okay, so my most embarrassing moment happened when I was in 9th grade. It was my first day of high school. I was super excited because I was wearing Converse tennis shoes, khaki shorts, and a white polo shirt. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I was so nervous about high school. So nervous. And I can remember getting up super early that morning, eating breakfast, getting ready for school, making sure that the fit check was just right. And it's time to go catch the bus. And I was super nervous. I waited across the street for the bus. And as I am waiting and nervous and kind of just shifting side to side, I look up and I see that there is a bus coming up the road. And the bus driver doesn't stop. So I start chasing after this bus. And I end up running on wet grass that had a bunch of dew and end up falling down a hill. Like I slid down a hill, my khaki shorts got covered in grass, and I climb my way up this hill, scale it. It seemed like a mountain at the time, but it wasn't. And the bus driver had stopped at this point because, you know, she sees a child, a 9th grader, rolling down the hill and trying to make it to her. She opens the door of the bus, looks at me, and she goes, "Sugar, I don't think you're supposed to be on this bus." And it was then I realized that I had been chasing a special education bus. And I was mortified. I just hung my head in shame and walked back to my house with grass stains all over my khaki shorts and went back inside. Now, the worst part of it wasn't that I was chasing a special ed bus. It was just that for years, my relatives, who shall be nameless, would constantly ask me where my helmet was because they said I needed a helmet to go to school because of how I chased the wrong bus. So it was pretty mortifying. It made my first day of 9th grade super memorable and also humiliating. I remember I didn't wear what I thought I was going to wear. In fact, I don't even remember what I changed into. That's how traumatic it was. I think I just blocked it all. And it was super embarrassing for me. And Every once in a while, someone will ask me about a helmet and I just ignore them. So if we ever see each other in real life and you mention anything about this moment, I will just kind of glaze over and not acknowledge it whatsoever. So that's that. It's funny how memories like that can stay with you forever. Anyways, it's crazy. All right, we do not have a segment for this episode because it's kind of unique and we don't have the feedback of all the sisters. So we're going to just kind of pass over that. But I did want to mention that we are starting to have sponsors for our episodes, and that is super exciting. The idea of having businesses that want to support this little passion project that we have. So our first sponsor is AAA Life Solutions, and they are great for helping you figure out how you can plan for your future. They provide peaceful solutions in uncertain times, and we definitely are in those. If you want to be prepared for the future, then you should call Renee and Adam over at AAA Life Solutions because they're incredible and they do a fantastic job. They are able to help you out no matter where you are in the process. So 901-508-2433. Okay. We are going to jump into our episode for today. Guys, this has been a really, really hard thing. I've had so many options running through my head on what I wanted to speak to you about. But I just can't help but think that we needed to talk about love and how that looks and what that means. So today, we are going to talk about love and how love is always the answer. In a world that feels full of noise, division, and fear, there's one thing that cuts through the chaos, and that's love. I feel like with our world and the state that it is right now, every day you turn on the news or look at social media and you see so much heartache, loss, suffering, hate, violence. I mean, we're surrounded on every side by all of these things that are horrible. And I think the thing that we are failing in is our ability to bring love into the situation and to bring love into our lives. It seems like it should be intuitive for love to be the answer, but it's not. And a large part of that is because love is not easy. It's going to take some work. When I was thinking about this episode topic, I just kept having that song run through my head. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. And I just have that part coming over and over and over again. So you should listen to that sometime. It's a great song. It's a classic. When I was thinking about where to start with this, I always turn to the scriptures first. And in 1 John chapter 4, verse 7, it says, "Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone that loveth is born of God, and knoweth God. He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love." I have a reel that my kids made forever and ever and ever ago. It was probably years ago. We did it with Luke's voice. I think it was, I'll have to link it on social media, but it said, "You know what the world needs? More Jesus." And they said it. Each of them said more Jesus repeatedly. And I think of that so much because it seems to be the part that we're missing. We know Jesus is the answer, but do we live like Jesus is the answer? No, I think we're looking for answers in different places, and that's part of the problem. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about what love looks like in these troubled times and how we can show love to those people in our lives that matter, because that is the point. And it is my hope that maybe you'll be able to draw some small tip or some hint from this that can help you apply it to your life, or maybe just help you feel loved. I hope you walk away from this feeling just love. Okay, so the first thing I thought about when I thought about love is that love starts in the home. And what does that look like? I know I've said time and time and time again, I heard it years and years and years ago, that in any altercation, the strongest emotion wins. And I made the decision when I had toddlers that the strongest emotion in our home would always be love. Now, that doesn't mean that others don't come close to it. Sometimes there's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of exhaustion that goes on in our house. Having 5 kids and many schedules and lots of things going all the time means that emotions can get pretty raw pretty quick. But I forcefully make sure intentionally that love is always the strongest emotion in our home. The great Mahatma Gandhi said, "Where there is love, there is life." And it looks like choosing love over contention, choosing love over stress, choosing love over anger. We have so many situations where I literally have to remind the people in my home through clenched teeth that the strongest emotion here is love. It's going to take consistent effort. But like anything that takes consistent effort, it pays off. It makes it so that your home is a place that is safe. It doesn't mean that you don't have contention. That just happens. But it's not about whether you have the fight or whether the fight happens. It's about how quickly can you forgive, resolve, and get back to love. That's what matters. Okay, so I thought about a couple of ways that we can show up with love to our families. This looks like having presence, setting the phone aside and listening, creating little rituals, whether that's bedtime prayer, car sing-alongs, family dinners, forgiving quickly and not holding grudges. Also, it's really important and pretty significant to just make it a habit to incorporate those little phrases like, "I love you," "I'm proud of you," "You're the best," "I believe in you." These all are like putting little armor chinks of love in their chain before they have to go and face the world, and that's huge. It's important to pray together and let kids hear you pray for them by name. I know I shared a few weeks ago about my son who said whenever he went on his church mission and grand adventures that he wasn't going to write home. He was just going to write in a journal and let us read it. And it's been one of my prayers for the last little bit that he could see value in his family. And it has been amazing to me to see how God is helping soften his heart and just change and help him see the value in the people that he's surrounded by. It is a gift. Love is a gift. And it starts underneath your roof. The next place that it is important to show love is in our communities. And sometimes I think that this seems to be the most obvious and probably the most easy to do, because it's always easy to have love be your winning emotion whenever you're actively serving in the community, whether that be with school organizations, PTO, parent groups, booster associations between sports and the arts. There's so many ways that you're actively serving in the community, and that service is coming from a place of love. So that makes it really easy to just kind of fall into the pattern. It's definitely more hard to keep the emotion of love consistent in your home than it is with the groups that you're serving with. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that sometimes there's always that person who can make serving on school boards and that kind of thing a little bit difficult. But for the most part, you're there because you love your children, you love your community, and you want to give back. So this seems to be probably the easiest way that we can have love show up in troubled times. But something that I was thinking about with loving in our communities is the first thing we have to do if we want to come from a place of love is we have got to stop comparing ourselves with each other. This one is a hard one. I was reminded by a friend this week about how we just don't see all the struggles that everyone goes through. The unseen things that people deal with are not things that we're privy to, and we just have to give people grace. Everyone looks like they have it all together. But I decided a long time ago that I never wanted anybody else's problems. I don't want anyone else's life. I don't want anyone else's problems because it always comes with a price. So try to remember that when you want to compare yourself to so-and-so next door or so-and-so across the street. Just don't do it. They're dealing with things that you just don't even know. It's crazy to think that the things that people struggle with that we just never even see. So, I love this quote by Russell M. Nelson that says, "We need peacemakers, not peacekeepers. Peacemakers are willing to listen, learn, and help others feel God's love. They build bridges of understanding rather than walls of resentment." And I think that is what happens whenever you choose not to compare yourself to others. You are building bridges instead of walls and keeping that open so that you have a relationship that is full of love and dependable. Those kind of spaces are so necessary in today's world. We have to create those for ourselves and for the people that are in our spheres, because if we don't, where do we have to turn to? Thankfully, there's a lot. I mean, we're in the South here. I respect and admire so many strong, stalwart church groups. Doesn't matter what the religion is. They're fantastic. They're amazing. And it's because they come from a place of love. In thinking of some ways that we can show love to our communities and in our communities, some of the things that are just simple is to check in on a neighbor, bring a meal, or write a handwritten note when you see someone go extra above and beyond to serve in the community. Sometimes I think that community service can be a thankless job because everyone sees people doing it, but people rarely comment on it. You know how big of an impact that would be to just drop a line or send a note to someone who you saw serving and working in our communities. It would be incredible. Support local businesses or volunteer at school and at church. Choose empathy. Listen before judging, especially when opinions differ. Be the calm voice in conflict, a peacemaker who builds bridges, not walls, and look for the unnoticed. Smile at a cashier. Thank a teacher. Look out for the lonely. You know, those people that always hang out on the fringes. Watch out for them. Speak to them. Love them. That is what Jesus would do. All right, and I was thinking about love. This one's probably one of the more difficult places to feel like we show love, but I truly believe in our world that we have today, this right here could be a complete game changer. I'm always thinking about what kind of movement Southern Sisters could have, and I truly believe that social media, which is the town square of our day, could be a place of love if more people were to make it a place of love. The sad part is, most people that are loving and have that gift of love see conflict and struggle and strife that is social media. And instead of speaking up in goodness and light, they just kind of turn away and turn it off. And that means you're left with a room full of people yelling at each other instead of having a voice of love. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend." I had the chance for book club a couple of months ago to read this book. It's called Careless People, and it's by Sarah Wynne Williams. And there were some things I agreed with, some things I didn't, but it was pretty much her memoir about her experience working with Facebook. And I don't really want to go into it too much, except to say it was very eye-opening for me to have a glimpse at those who create and run social media. It was almost like you got to look behind the curtain of The Wizard of Oz and kind of see how they do things and how they interact with each other, and they don't care about us. They don't care about the normal, everyday person. They care about growth, and they care about their own power and influence. And be that what it may, I feel like as a little person in a big pond, we don't really have a lot of control over any of that, but it has made me be serious about reflecting what I want in this space rather than just turning a blind eye to things when I see conflict. One thing that I have thought has been very interesting the last few weeks that I have noticed is that the algorithms are out to get us all. And by get us all, I mean they're out to get us to listen and watch more to whatever we are listening to and watching. So what ends up happening is if you're watching a lot of things, for example, and this was just the most prominent one that, because it just happened, about 2 weeks ago, actually, exactly 2 weeks ago, Charlie Kirk, who was speaking at one of his Turning Point USA meetings that he did. I don't know. I haven't seen or done a lot with that, but he was assassinated by a young man with a differing point of view. And it has been so interesting to me to watch the last 2 weeks because social media is dividing our country on this topic. It's not just that a man was murdered and assassinated. It's if you support more right-wing type philosophies and ideals, social media is sending you all of these things that prop him up as a hero. And if you are a little bit more liberal or reinforce left-wing things, ideas, you're seeing all the ways that he was a horrible person because that's what you watch. So it gives you that. It gives you more of that and more of that. On the same other side, if you think that he was a hero, it's giving you more of that and more of that and more of that. And what it's proving to do in this instance is it is dividing our country and polarizing us over something that should be a given. It should be a given that no murder is ever okay. I don't care what they say. But because of what we're being fed, people either feel like he was amazing or he was a horrible person, he deserved to die. That's not okay. It's not okay. And it's happening because social media is feeding us all the snippets of whatever we are choosing to consume. Is it any wonder why we look at people we know and we think they're crazy? They're not saying the same, they're not seeing the same things that we are seeing. Nobody is seeing the same things that we are seeing. And no one has control over that. The whole idea is slightly terrifying, and I think that we need a wake-up call. to recognize that there's a reason why people think that the way that they do. It's because of the things they're consuming. And there needs to be more grace in that space. Because if we're not careful, in the end, it's making monsters out of all of us. And we are not that way. Contention drives away the spirit every time. Contention reinforces the false notion that confrontation is the way to resolve differences. This is not the Lord's way. Confrontation is not the Lord's way. His way is kindness, meekness, and compassion. It matters. And we've got to do something to change this social space. Otherwise, I really do feel like it will be the downfall of our civilization. Sorry, guys. Here are just a few ways that you can show love in your area of social media. Post encouragement, not just perfection. Share real life as well as beauty. We need the real moments, not just the picture perfect one, guys. I have been passionate about this for years. It is so important that you share the struggle as well as the strengths, because otherwise people feel like that you never have a hard day, and that's just not reality. Use your words to uplift and not argue. It goes back to that quote on contention. It doesn't solve anything. Comment generously. Tell people what you appreciate about their work, their family, and their presence. I wish that people knew how much a comment matters whenever people post things, because it's just a way to help people feel seen and feel loved, so long as that comment comes from a place where that person feels supported. Share scriptures, quotes, or reminders that spread light in the scroll. And model love by avoiding comparison-driven posts and celebrating others' wins. So, I thought those were all really fantastic ways. All right, we have one last love bucket, you could say, that we need to make sure that we're filling. That's what Lindsay would say if she were here. It was a love bucket. This one may very well be the hardest bucket of all to fill and to keep full, and that is having love for ourselves. Brene Brown says, owning our story and loving ourselves through that process is the bravest thing that we'll ever do. I've been thinking about that for the last few days. Why is it so hard to love ourselves? And I can't help but think that maybe part of the reason why there's so much of those toxic things in the world is because at the crux of it, in our hearts, we don't love ourselves. What keeps us from doing that? The first thing I thought about was that comparison, again, not just on a macro level of who has what or how they live, but we live in a culture where we can constantly see highlight reels. In friend groups, even at church, it's easy to measure our behind-the-scenes struggles against someone else's polished moments, and that comparison breeds feelings of not enough. I wish it were as easy to do this as it is to say, just stop. Stop comparing yourself to other people. You have something that is unique and that is divine and that is only you. You are the only one that can do the things that you're meant to do. You are the only one that can love the way you are meant to love yourself and others. We have got to stop looking at everyone else's Pinterest perfect life and comparing it to our own. It doesn't work. It is a recipe for disaster. I think another problem we have with loving ourselves is that we notice all of our flaws more than we rejoice and glory in our strengths. Why does that happen? I don't know. But when somebody says, "Oh, Meggan, that was a great thing you did," I just always think about all the ways that I did it wrong. Or when somebody says, "Oh, that's a beautiful family portrait that you took," I just think of all the things I had to edit and all the things that I did wrong that would have made a beautiful picture. But I just look at all the flaws. When someone says you're really successful, I just want to say, yeah, but at what cost? I'm exhausted. My body is not where I want it to be. I'm not as healthy as I should be because I feel like I just don't have enough time because I'm so busy doing so many other things. As moms, wives, and women of faith, we tend to fixate on where we fall short. Snapping at our kids, the laundry piling up, while overlooking the dozens of quiet ways we're showing up with love and faithfulness in every single day. Whew, that laundry. It taunts us. But we're so much more than all the flaws. Sometimes perfectionism masquerades as righteousness. Here's the truth of it, though. We confuse being Christ-like with being flawless and perfect. That is not God's way. We think if we're stumbling, we're failing God and our families. But really, God never asked us to be perfect today. Our Father in heaven has asked us to keep turning to Him and letting His grace carry us. I think that is probably one of my most favorite things about the faith journey that we're all on, is He's not asking us to be perfect. We beat ourselves up over that stuff when in reality, it is through those moments of struggle and it's through those moments of hard that we create a relationship with Him that helps carry us through all the rest. Sometimes we have trouble loving ourselves because of past trauma or voices that we have in our head that tell us we're not enough, that we're not good enough. Sometimes critical words from childhood, cultural expectations, or even past relationships can constantly echo in our mind. Those voices drown out the truth of our worth as children of God. And that is a really hard thing to deal with if you've had trauma and if you've had emotional or physical abuse. I am so sorry that is a burden that you've had to carry. But at the same time, I believe that it's in the fire that steel is made. And I also believe that God doesn't ever give us anything that we can't handle. So if you are a victim of abuse in your life and you're listening to this, just know I am in awe of you for the amazing soul that you are, that God felt you were worthy for that struggle and burden in this life. It's not something we're meant to carry alone. When we have trouble loving ourselves, I think the biggest thing is that we've forgotten who we are as children of God. Our identity can get so wrapped up in the roles that we perform that we forget whose we are and from where we come. Remembering that in the moments of hard, when we don't love ourselves very much, can change everything. But it's going to take a lot of thought work. It's going to take a lot of affirmations and mental work, emotional work, to move past these things, these barriers that we have inside of ourselves that keep us from loving ourselves. Here are a couple of ways that maybe we can show love to ourselves. Speak kindly to yourself. We've talked a lot about that chick in your head. Replace self-criticism with grace.
Growing up, my mom always said, well, my mom said many things, but one of the things that I loved that she said is give yourself permission not to be perfect. And she would say, if something's barely worth doing, then you should barely do it. Now, I've used that last one to excuse a lot of things in my life that I barely want to do. And so I barely do them. But I think in the important things, namely loving yourself and loving people around you, that'd be something that I've always tried to prioritize. I'm not great at birthday parties. I'm not great at cooking. No, I take that back. I can follow a recipe pretty okay. I'm not good at baking. I don't find joy in serving my family in that way. Doesn't mean that I don't do it, but it's something that I think I barely do. But on the big things, making sure that the temperature of our home is one of love, that's really important. And I'm going to do that with every fiber of my being. Another way we can show love to ourselves is to create margin. Rest without guilt. Take a walk. Breathe in quiet moments. Nourish your soul. That's going to come through prayer, reading scripture, journaling, practicing gratitude, having daily affirmations. These are so important and they matter. Celebrate small wins for yourself. Recognize that progress matters more than perfection. It is not how fast you run this race. It's just that you keep walking. Don't stop walking. And then remember your divine worth as a child of God. I'm really excited. Spoiler alert. We are preparing right now to record episodes next week for the next few weeks, and it's going to be amazing. But I'm so excited because one of our topics is going to be the divine role of woman and womanhood. And I can't wait to talk about that with the sisters because we just have a unique perspective on our role as daughters of God, serving in the kingdom. And I can't wait to talk about that with the sisters and share that with you guys. I think it's going to be amazing. I just want to encourage you to remember that your small acts of love, whether in your home, whether in your marriage, whether to yourself or your community, are powerful and they matter. So don't give up. Love may not change the world in a single day, but it can change someone's world today. And I want you to look at the world through a lens of love. It's the only way we're going to get through this. Because if we don't, it's too easy to get swallowed up in all the darkness. And right now, Jesus needs us to be a light. And that's why we're here. That's why we do this. That's why we do what we do. It's what God has called us to do. It's what brings healing, hope, and peace. So, our reflection question for the week is, where can you choose to love this week, even in a hard place? Just focus on one of those buckets and see if you can't fill it just a little bit. And who needs to feel the power of your love today? That would be a pretty good prayer question. I love asking this one because all it takes is to have someone random pop into your mind and then to follow through with whatever you feel like you should do for that person and have them say, I don't know how you knew that I needed this. And you just think to yourself, I didn't. But God does. And He is the only way we're going to make it through. I love you all. You're amazing. And until next time, keep striving, and we'll see y'all soon.
Now it's time for the bloopers.
Welcome to our episode of Southern Sisters. We are so glad you're here. Thank you so much.
No, no, no. I can't say we, because it's just me. There's not a frog in my pocket.
Okay, okay. I don't want to do that. Okay, it's going to be fine. Where are my sisters? Okay. Whew. Got this.